Once upon a time, in a faraway land nestled in the old eastern Nigeria, there lived a beautiful young woman named Oledo, or Ola, as her friends and family would call her. Ola was the beloved daughter of Ike, a great hunter renowned throughout the region, and Princess Usoma, whose father was the king of a neighboring kingdom. Ike was a man of remarkable strength and unequaled skill in hunting. His prowess was such that tales of his victories and achievements has spread far and wide, reaching even the most distant villages and kingdoms. But it wasn't just his strength that earned him admiration. Ike was also known for his endless kindness. No one who sought his help left his side empty handed. Whether it was a share of his game, wisdom in times of trouble, or simply a warm smile, Ike's generosity knew no bounds. Princess Usoma, the daughter of a powerful king, had many suitors. They came from lands near and far, each one wealthier and more handsome than the last. Yet, Usoma had always known that true wealth was found in character, not money alone. She desired a man who would protect her as fiercely as her father protected her mother, and one whose kindness would ensure she never suffered, even in the midst of great riches. When she heard of Ike the hunter, whose fame for both strength and kindness preceded him, she knew she had found her match and had started planning on the best way to get her father to approve. But as fate would sometimes be strange, Ike was invited to the palace by her father on account of a strange animal that has been destroying farmlands and scaring the people away from their livelihood. He was promised great wealth and honor if he successfully killed the animal and brought it home. But Ike, who had also heard of the famed beauty and humble nature of the princess, had desired to make her his wife, but didn't know how to go about courting the daughter of a great king. So, when the king offered great riches and honor as his reward, Ike had instead asked that he be given whatever he desired from the king's household when he returned victorious. The king had thought hard about it, and after coming to a conclusion when he had consulted with his chief adviser, he had given condition that he will release anything from his household to Ike if the said thing was willing to follow him. In addition, he will also get the promised wealth. So Ike had gone on his way with much determination and hope. And after 2 weeks of studying and marking the pattern of life of the strange animal, he had finally caught it in a great trap and brought it to the palace of the king alive. As he was marching to the palace victorious, carrying the animal in a cage, the sight of the strange being caught the attention of the villagers, and they followed Ike along, singing his praise. Men, women, and children all sang until they got to the palace. The people in the palace heard the loud noise from a distance, and the king became troubled, thinking that there was a commotion among his people. He quickly sent some of his warriors, but the warriors, on seeing the reason for the tumult, also joined the people by lifting Ike and the animal on their shoulders. Finally, when they reached the palace, the king, his elders, and families were amazed as they watched the joyous procession. It has never been heard of in all the kingdoms that a man caught such strange and dangerous animal alive and lived to tell the tale. As was their customs and tradition, Ike was blessed by the king and his elders, and when it was time for him to name his prize, he named the princess as the object of his desire. When Usoma had been told that she had been selected as a prize for Ike, she had agreed to Ike's request, and as promised, the king had given him much wealth and told him to go bring his elders for the marriage rite. Their union was celebrated with great joy, And from this loving and admirable pair, Oledo was born. Oledo inherited her father's strength of spirit and her mother's graciousness. She grew up in a home filled with love, learning the values of courage, generosity, and compassion. As the daughter of such esteemed parents, Oledo was known throughout the land not just for her beauty, but for her noble heart. And so the tale of Oledo begins. In a land where the whisper of the wind carried the stories of her father's valor and her mother's grace. This is the tale of a girl destined to embark on her own journey, facing challenges and adventures that will shape her into a legend of her own. 3 years had passed since the joyous celebration of Oledo's coming of age. Her beauty and grace had only grown, and soon it was time for another celebration, her traditional marriage. Princess Susamma, her mother, was busy with preparations, her heart filled with excitement and pride as she arranged the details for her beloved daughter's special day. The entire village buzzed with anticipation. Ike, ever the devoted father, had taken his first son on a hunting expedition. They sought the finest game to honor Oledo's marriage, ensuring that the feast would be as magnificent as the occasion itself. Ike's skill as a hunter was unmatched, and everyone awaited their return with eager hearts and confident smiles. But as fate could be cruel, and destiny often brings unexpected twists, on the eve of their return, a dark cloud descended upon the village. A group of hunters emerged from the forest, carrying the lifeless bodies of Ike and his son. The sight sent a shock wave throughout the village. Cries of grief pierced the air as the realization sank in. Two of their most beloved and respected men were gone. Princess Usoma fell to her knees, her heart shattered by the devastating loss. Oledo, too, was inconsolable. Her father and her brother, her protectors and guides, had been taken from her in the blink of an eye. The village that had been on the brink of celebration was now plunged into deep mourning. Confusion reigned as no one could determine the cause of their death. There was no sign of struggle or injury, no clues to unravel the mystery. It was as though the forest itself had conspired against them, snatching away their life without warning or explanation. And in place of the vibrant preparation for Oledo's marriage, the village now faced the somber task of preparing for a funeral. The joyous songs that were to echo through the hills were replaced by the mournful wails of a grieving community. Ola and her family were left to grapple with their profound sorrow and loss, trying to make sense of a future that suddenly seemed to be uncertain and bleak. As the villagers gathered to honor the memory of the great hunter Ike and his son, Ola vowed to find the truth behind their death. In her heart, she knew this tragedy was not just a cruel twist of fate, but the beginning of a journey that will reveal hidden truths and test her resilience as never before. Ike and his son were laid to rest with the reverence and grandeur befitting kings. The entire village turned out to mourn, joined by dignitaries from far and near. Amongst them was Igwe Omenkosi, the father of Princess Osoma, a powerful and respected ruler who had traveled to pay his last respect to his son-in-law and his grandson. Despite the solemn spectacle of the grand burial, Ola and her mother were blind to the world around them. Ola clung to the remnant of her strength, drawing deeply from within to support her mother. The grieving widow, crushed by the sudden loss of her husband and only son, was a shadow of her former self. She had retreated into a shell of silence, refusing to eat, speak, or engage with anyone. It was as though she was just a shell. Oledo, though devastated herself, understood that she needed to be strong for her mother. The young woman found herself navigating through the day like a ghost, her actions mechanical and her heart heavy with sorrow. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she bore it with a quiet resolve, determined to be the pillar her mother needed in these dark times. The burial was the most talked about affair in recent memory. Igwe Omenkosi had spared no expense in ensuring that his grandson and son-in-law were buried with the utmost honor and fanfare. The entire village was transformed for the occasion, adorned with vibrant fabrics and floral arrangements, all meant to celebrate the lives that had been lost. Despite the outward beauty and grandeur of the ceremony, a deep unspoken pain hung in the air. Ola had barely focused on the rituals and speeches, her mind consumed by memories of her father and brother. She could almost hear their laughter and feel their presence, now replaced by overwhelming emptiness. Princess Usoma, supported on either side by her attendants, moved through the ceremony in a daze. She was present in body but absent in spirit. Her eyes were empty and lifeless. Ola's heart ached even more for her mother, and she silently vowed to find a way to bring her back from the abyss of grief. As the sun set and the mourners began to disperse, Ola stood at the fresh graves, her heart heavy with a mixture of sorrow and determination. She knew that life as she knew it would never be the same, but she also knew that she had come to carry on for her mother's sake and to the honor, but she also knew that she had to carry on for her mother's sake and to honor the memories of her father and only brother. The village slowly returned to its daily rhythms, but for Ola and Princess Osoma, a new and challenging journey had begun. They would have to find a way to navigate through their griefs, uncover the mystery behind the tragedy, and rebuild their lives in a world that had been irrevocably changed. After the customary period of mourning, Ola found herself at a crossroads. The village had slowly resumed its normal activities, but for Ola, life remained a struggle. Her mother had not recovered from the shock of losing her husband and son. She remained in a state of deep grief, barely speaking or eating, a shadow of her former vibrant self. Ola knew she had to stay strong, not just for herself, but for her mother. The grief threatened to overwhelm her, but she found a lifeline in a mission she had secretly undertaken. She wants to uncover the truth behind the death of her father and brother. The quest provided her with a sense of purpose, a distraction from her pain, and a glimmer of hope that perhaps understanding the tragedy might bring some solace. Every day, Ola balanced her time between caring for her grief-stricken mother and her covert investigation. She nursed Osama with tender care, coaxing her to eat and trying to bring her small moments of comfort. Her mother's well-being was her top priority, and she knew that if she lost herself to despair, there would be no one left to take care of her. At night, when the village slept, Ola would quietly slip out of her home, her heart pounding with a mist of pain and determination. She would visit the people her father and her brother were acquainted with. She spoke in hushed tones to other hunters and listened intently to the whispers that floated through the village. She sought out the elders and wise women, hoping to piece together any fragment of information that would lead her to the truth. Despite her efforts, the mystery remained shrouded in darkness. No one seemed to know what had caused their death. Some whispered of a curse, others spoke of vengeful spirits, while a few believed it was the work of a hidden enemy. The lack of concrete answers only fueled Ola's resolve. She knew that giving up was not an option. One evening, as she sat by her mother's side, Ola felt a renewed sense of purpose. She looked at Osama, whose eyes were distant and filled with sorrow, and vowed silently to find the truth no matter the cost. Her mother's life and her own sanity depended on it. The quest for answers became her anchor and the force that kept her grounded and moving forward. Ola's journey had only just begun. She was determined to uncover the secrets hidden in the shadows and to bring justice to her father and brother. With each step, she grew stronger, her grief slowly transforming into a fierce determination. She knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and challenges, but she was ready to face whatever came her way. As the village continued to heal from its loss, Ola's secret mission remained her guiding light, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. After a long and arduous search, Ola finally stumbled upon the first clue in her quest for the truth. Late one evening, she met with one of the hunters who had been with her father on the day of the tragedy. The man was reluctant to speak at first, his eyes filled with a sorrow and terror she could not explain. But Ola persisted, and the hunter eventually revealed that whoever had killed her father and brother were not strangers to them. Even though the man had refused to say anything further, Ola was grateful for the little he had revealed. It was more than the others had been willing to give, and this revelation was the key she had been desperately seeking. It meant the threat was close, hidden within the familiar faces around her. However, before she could act on this newfound clue, another devastating tragedy struck. Princess Osama, whose heart had been shattered by the loss of her husband and son, could no longer find the will to live. Despite feeling pity for her beloved daughter, Osama's spirit had been too deeply wounded. One night, she went to sleep and never woke up again. Ola was plunged into a deep abyss. Ola was plunged into a deeper abyss of despair. The loss of her mother was a blow she could hardly bear. The little strength she had been holding on to for her mother's sake seemed to vanish. Taken to the land of the great beyond with her mother, Ola felt utterly alone, orphaned, and overwhelmed by a grief that she could not understand, as it threatened to consume her entire being. The village once again gathered to mourn with her, but this time Ola felt numb, unable to draw comfort from the communal sorrow. Her mother's passing had left a void too vast to fill. The weight of her new reality pressed down on her, and for a moment she considered abandoning her quest. What was the point of finding answers when the people she loved most were gone? Who was she finding the answers for? And what will she do with it if she finds it? She often ponders as she wanders aimlessly around her grandfather's palace. Igwe Omenkosi had insisted on bringing her to the palace when the mourning period ended. He wasn't ready to lose the last thread of his beloved daughter to the mysterious death that had plagued her household. He had sought for insight from the wise men both in his kingdom and beyond, but each time he had been told not to venture into the matter if he wants to live. But not knowing the secret mission of his granddaughter, he never revealed this to her. So Ola had eventually found strength again, though bereaved and in much sorrow. But in the depth of her despair, a small spark of determination had flickered to life, because she knew that if she gave up now, all the sacrifices her parents had made or the love they had given to her would be in vain. She realized that her quest for the truth was not just about finding justice for her father and brother, but also about honoring their memory and bringing peace to her troubled soul. Gathering what little strength she had left, Ola vowed to persevere. She would find out who was behind the death of her father and brother, and she would make sure that their spirits, as well as her mother's, would rest in peace. With a heavy heart and renewed resolve, she prepared to delve deeper into the mystery, determined to uncover the secrets that had led to such unimaginable loss, keeping it all away from her indulgent grandfather. Ola knew the path ahead would be difficult and the dangers even greater, but she was ready to face them, carrying with her the love and strength of her parents, guiding her steps as she moved forward into the dangerous unknown. In the midst of her tragedies, Ola had nearly forgotten about Ifani, the young man who would have been her husband if those unfortunate events hadn't occurred. Ifani was the son of a wealthy plantation owner, a family that had long prospered from their vast palm tree plantations. Each generation had added more land and more palm trees, making Ifani's family the wealthiest in the region by the time he and his father managed the estates. Ifani first met Ola during a visit to her maternal home. She had accompanied her mother, Princess Usoma, to greet Igwe Omenkosi, bringing with them a gift of salted dry meat that her father had prepared especially for the king. It was during this visit that Ifani caught a glimpse of Ola. Though the encounter was brief, it was enough for him to be captivated by her beauty and grace. From that moment, Ifani knew he wanted Oledo to be his wife. His father had been in great support of his choice. One of his secret fears had always been that his son might marry a woman who couldn't help him shoulder the immense responsibility that came with their family's wealth. He understood that their prosperity was not merely a privilege but a duty, a burden they carried for the good of their land and the people within it. The initial plans for their union had been joyful. Both families saw the potential for a powerful and beneficial alliance. However, the tragedies that befell Oledo's family had put those plans on hold. In the chaos and sorrow that followed, Oledo had little time to think about the future she once envisioned with Ifani. Ifani, meanwhile, had respected the mourning period and given Ola the space he thought she needed. But as the months passed, his concern for her grew. He had heard whispers of her secret quest and admired her strength and determination. His feelings for her had not waned. If anything, they had deepened as he witnessed her resilience. One day, driven by a mixture of love and worry, Ifani had thrown the caution to the wind and decided to seek out Ola. He found her tending to her mother's grave, her face a marks of grief and pain. Seeing her in such state broke his heart, but it also reaffirmed his desire to be by her side, to support her through her darkest times. Oledo, he called softly, approaching her with care. She looked up, startled, but her expression softened when she recognized him. Ifani, she whispered, her voice heavy with sorrow and fatigue. I wouldn't stay away any longer, he said gently. I have been worried about you. I want to help you. I want to stand by you through all of this. Please, stop chasing me away. Give me the chance to give you all the emotional support and protection that you need in these trying times. Tears welled up in Ola's eyes as she looked at Ifani. His presence was a reminder of a happier time, a future that still held promise, which was why she had stayed away from him. She didn't want to be reminded of all the things she had lost in this short period of time. But seeing him again, she realized that she didn't have to face her burdens alone. With Ifani's support, she could find the strength to continue her quest and to honor her parents' memory. But she wasn't sure she was ready to place such heavy burdens on another. So with a heavy heart, she replied him, Thank you, her voice trembling. Your support means more to me than you can know, but I am afraid I won't accept your kind offer. Ifeanyi wanted to protest, but Ola raised her hand and continued, I cannot guarantee my own life. I need to get to the root of what has killed my brother and father. And I don't know how dangerous that would be. I wouldn't want another to bear the consequences of my decisions. Please understand what I am saying, she concluded, her heart breaking at the prospect of losing him again. When Ifeanyi saw that she was done talking, he moved forward and gathered her into his arms despite her protest. And he said, "If I stay away when you are in danger, how could I ever be worthy to be the man you nearly married?" Ola had broken down then, not being able to hold back the tears anymore. Ifeanyi had held her until she had cried to her heart's content. From that day forward, Ifeanyi became a steadfast companion to Oledo. Together, they continued the search for the truth behind her father and brother's death, even as they began to rebuild their lives and plan for a future that held hope, love, and justice. Ifeanyi had met his father and told him of his continued interest in marrying Ola. His father, though skeptical, had gone ahead to meet with the elders of Ola's father's house, and he also paid a courtesy call with Ifeanyi to Igwe Omenkosi Palace to inform him of their intentions. The king had expressed his joy in their continued interest and had offered his support in any way they needed it. As a result of the heavy cloud of her parents' absence, the marriage had been conducted quietly and in the barest minimum. A year into her marriage, Ola and Ifeanyi had settled into a life filled with love and anticipation. The sorrows of the past was gradually fading away. Ola was now heavily pregnant, and their home buzzed with the excitement of the upcoming addition to their family. However, one fateful morning, everything changed again. Ola awoke with a wild look in her eyes, speaking incoherently and behaving erratically. Her sudden descent into madness struck fear into the hearts of her loved ones. Ifeanyi was devastated and bewildered, unable to comprehend what had happened to his beloved wife. Despite their best effort, they couldn't determine the cause of her condition. Desperation set in, and Ifeanyi and his family began a frantic search for solutions. They consulted healers, medicine men, and wise elders, but no remedy seemed to work. In their quest for answers, they reached out to Igwe Omenkosi, Ola's paternal grandfather. The news of Ola's condition brought great sorrow to the Igwe, who immediately traveled to Ifeanyi's home to offer his support. When Igwe Omenkosi arrived, Ifeanyi recounted Ola's relentless search for the truth behind her father and brother's death. Hearing this, the Igwe's heart sank, for he remembered the warning given by the wise men years ago. They had cautioned that the deaths were shrouded in a dark secret, one that should never be disturbed if the living must continue. The Igwe realized that his granddaughter, in her quest for answers, must have stumbled upon something forbidden. His mind raced with worry and regret. The warnings of the wise men had been clear. Disturbing this hidden truth could bring grave consequences. The Igwe feared that Ola's madness was as a result of her uncovering a truth that was never meant to be revealed. Ifeanyi, the Igwe began, his voice heavy with sorrow. I believe Ola's condition is linked to her search. There were warnings about the secrets surrounding her father and brother's death. It seems she had unwittingly awakened something that should have remained hidden. Ifeanyi listened with a sinking heart. The weight of the Igwe's words bore down on him, filling him with dread. What can we do to save her? He asked. Desperation laced in his voice. The Igwe sighed deeply, his eyes filled with anguish. We must seek out the very wise men who issued the warnings. They may hold the key to restoring Ola's sanity and protecting her from further harm. With renewed purpose, Ifeanyi, the Igwe, and a small group of trusted family members set out to find the wise men. Their journey was fraught with challenges, but they pressed on, driven by the hope of saving Ola and bringing peace to their family. Upon finding the wise men, they listened intently to the Igwe's pleas. After a long and solemn discussion, they agreed to help, but their faces were grave.
The path to restore Ola will not be easy
One of the wise men warned.
because a dreaded spirit has been offended and it is seeking retribution. This deity, once revered and feared, had been casted out and rejected by your people. And without worshippers to offer sacrifices and perform rituals, the deity had grown restless and bloodthirsty. The animal Ike had unknowingly captured was an image and the avatar of this great deity, sent to seek attention and restore its presence in the world. We must seek forgiveness from the deity. Only then can we hope to lift the curse that has befallen your family.
Igwe Omenkosi sat and pondered on what he had heard, and all of a sudden he shouted, "No, I will not," he declared in great anger. "I will not revive what my fathers rejected. I will find the solution to this calamity that has befallen my family, even if it is the last thing that I do." He stormed out in great anger. Ifeanyi and the others who had come with them, though shocked and disappointed, had no choice than to follow, planning to pacify and convince him as they saw no other solution. But even after many days, the king remained adamant in his decision and ventured out to do his own findings. As Igwe Omenkosi continued his search for the truth, he stumbled upon a chilling discovery. He learned that, as the wise men had said, Ike had truly captured an extraordinary creature. It was really the representation of the wicked deity that his ancestors had rejected long ago. This deity, once worshipped by the community, had been cast out when its wicked practices had become too much for the land. The deity, furious and vengeful, had been sealed away, its worship forbidden, and its shrines destroyed. However, the offspring of the old priest who once served this malevolent deity had kept the memory alive, unknown to Igwe and the descendants of those who had casted it out, waiting for an opportunity to resurrect its influence. Igwe Omenkosi's heart pounded as the full implication of his discovery became clear. One night, after many days, the king called Ifani, who was staying with Ola in the palace at the meantime, and told him the reason behind his decision and what he had discovered. "My son," he began quietly, "I am grateful that you love my granddaughter so much and have chosen to stay by her side no matter what. Now, I want you to listen to me so that you can understand my reason for refusing to give in to the suggestions of the wise men." "I am listening, Igwe," Ifani said, sitting down quietly. "My father told me before his death about this deity and why the people of our kingdom rejected it and its worship. This strange deity was brought by a man who sought refuge from those trying to kill him, and my forefathers then accommodated him, not knowing what his crimes were, nor seeking to find out. Over the years, the man had prospered and had gotten married to one of the daughters of our people. He had many sons and daughters that our people flocked to him to find out his secret. When he mentioned this deity as the one responsible for his prosperity, our people had accepted its worship with the hope that the kingdom would be affected positively as they witnessed from the man. But after a few years, instead of the positive result, our children began to die. Those that didn't die at birth were born deformed. Their farmlands and animals were not spared. After much consultations and findings, it was discovered that the deity has been the cause of the chaos in their kingdom. because it was a deity that demanded human sacrifice and blood worship. And when it does not get what it wants, it begins to plague the land and its people. Our people have never been involved in such before, but the fear of the priest and his deity was too much on them that it was difficult to do what was needed to save the kingdom. After many years of these tragedies and fear, a great man who I just discovered was a forefather of Ike had come with a solution to my father, who was the king at that time. And with his wise counsel and brave move, the priest and deity were driven away from the kingdom, including all his offsprings. Igwe Omenkosi paused a little and continued in his tale. But through my research, I have come to realize that one of the hunters who had gone on that hunt with Ike and my grandson was an avid worshipper of that evil deity, and he had been the one who unleashed that animal upon the land. But unfortunately, before he could perpetrate his plan, Ike caught the animal and I killed it. But I do not know who amongst them it is. Ifeanyi was now sitting upright in his chair, intrigued and dumbfounded by what he was hearing. So, Igwe, you mean to say all that has been happening was instigated by a man who is trying to avenge and reinstitute the worship of a wicked deity? Yes. Some of the priests we have consulted said what they said out of fear of what the angry deity would do if they revealed the truth. Abomination, Ifeanyi exclaimed. Yes, my son, you can say that again. It is an abomination when the truth is turned upside down for fear or for personal gain. Omenkosi declared, beating his chest as he continued. But it is only a man who does not know his own name that will answer to the call of a strange voice. In the time when the righteous are ignorant, the wicked prospered, and he thought it was his own power that has brought him this far. But what they don't know is that in the day of reckoning, what is done in the dark will be revealed by the light. I will put an end to this madness, and I will save my granddaughter and great grandchild from the hold of such wickedness. For evil, no matter its strength, can only prosper in darkness. But the light has come, so it is time for good to prevail. When Ifeanyi saw that he was done talking, he asked, but how can we deal with this wickedness? The elderly king sat in thoughtful silence, not saying anything further. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but Igwe Omenkosi was determined to make amends for his lack of actions as a result of his ignorance in the whole matter. He vowed to do whatever it took to save his granddaughter and restore peace to his family again. Armed with the revelation about the wicked deity and its dark priest, Igwe Omenkosi and his companions had prepared themselves to do away with the evil presence forever. In the palace archive, Igwe Omenkosi had discovered an ancient record detailing a way to abolish the deity and prevent it from ever gaining entrance into their territory again. Yet, they still had not uncovered the identity of the priest who had been serving the deity in secret. But one night, after days of preparation, Igwe Omenkosi was startled by a loud wail that pierced the quiet atmosphere. Recognizing the voice of his beloved granddaughter, Oledo, he hurried out. When he arrived, Ifeanyi was already there, trying to calm her down. Ola was thrashing about in pain, her words incoherent. The sight of her suffering filled Igwe Omenkosi with a rush of indignation and a fierce determination. In that moment, the Igwe knew that what must be done can no longer be delayed. He raised his voice to the high heavens as he stepped out into the night, summoning every ounce of strength and authority he possessed, and spoke into the night with a booming, resolute voice.
I am Iwe Omenkosi, the son of the kings of this land. I have in my veins the blood of righteous men who have labored to keep evil from taking over our land and its people. I have never failed in following their good and righteous footsteps. I have never taken that which is not my due. I have never judged the matter against the truth. I have never sided with wickedness, nor have I supported injustice. So how can evil prevail over my house? How can my children's teeth be set on edge when I and my fathers have not eaten sour grapes? How can evil thrive in life? Because it ought not to be. I stand as an authority in this land and in my household. I declare to the earth and to the heavens, and every created thing that this torment ends today.
As Igwe Omenkosi's powerful voice and words echoed through the night, a hush fell over the land. The air around them seemed to crackle with energy, and a sense of anticipation filled the hearts of those present. The Igwe's declaration was not just a plea, but a command, backed by the righteousness of his ancestors and his own unwavering integrity. The ground beneath them began to tremble, and a chilling wind swept through the village. The evil deity, sensing the challenge to its power, manifested its presence. The sky darkened, and a foreboding shadow loomed over the land. But Igwe Omenkosi stood firm, his gaze unwavering, his spirit resolute. Ifeanyi, hold Oledo close, the Igwe commanded. She is the key to breaking this curse. Her strength and our love will guide us through. Ifeanyi, with tears in his eyes but determination in his heart, held Oledo tightly as she continued to thrash about, her pregnancy notwithstanding. Some elders had rushed to the palace when the commotion was heard. They gathered around, chanting ancient words filled with light and truth to bolster the Igwe's declarations. As the chanting grew louder, the malevolent shadow began to form into a person. And when it became a man, Ifeanyi was shocked to see Ola's uncle, the elder brother of Ike, her late father, standing beside the deity's shadow. And he opened his mouth in sync with the movement of the shadow, as though they were one entity, and with a loud thundering voice was heard.
Ike was still a boy when I began to dance with the spirit of the masquerades. Why will he grow and think he can be better than I am?
Ola's uncle queried.
I entered into the bargain with this deity when he came to me in the forest, and it promised to give me powers beyond my imagination, so I can finally be greater than them all, including Ike, who everyone praised and loved. But he dared to stop me again.
This time, Iwe Omenkosi was done listening to the gibberish. He raised his voice again to chant the chorus of light and power. He was joined by Ifeanyi, the elders, and this time around, the entire household, including the palace servants, their voices blending into a powerful chorus such that the earth trembled. As the chanting grew louder, the malevolent shadow began to waver. Igwe Omenkosi stepped forward, holding aloft a sacred staff called the Thurim. When he raised his hand, the Thurim glowed with a brilliant light, pushing back the darkness. You have no power here, wicked one, Igwe Omenkosi declared, his voice ringing with authority. By the blood of the righteous that runs in my veins and the strength of this people, I banish you from our midst. Return to the void from whence you came, and never darken our doors again. The deity roared in defiance, but the combined power of the Igwe's declaration, the sacred Turin, and the united faith of those present was too great. A shadow began to dissolve, the dark presence retreating in the face of the overwhelming light and righteousness. With a final piercing scream, the deity was banished, its powers broken. The body of Ola's uncle fell lifeless on the floor and immediately became dust, which was swept away by the last gust of the wind. The night sky cleared, and a sense of peace settled over the land. Ola's thrashing ceased immediately, her body relaxing into Ifani's arms as the madness lifted from her mind. Tears of relief and joy flowed freely as the people gathered, witnessing the end of their torment. Igwe Omenkosi, his face edged with both weariness and triumph, turned to his granddaughter. "It is over," he said softly, his voice filled with love. "You are free, my dear Ola. We are all free." Oledo's wide eyes slowly cleared, and a look of recognition and relief crossed her face. Her recovery was slow but steady, her mind gradually returning to its former clarity. Ifeanyi and Igwe Omenkosi remained vigilant, not wanting to give any room for the curse to arise again. And in time, Oledo fully regained her senses, her strength bolstered by the love and support of her family. Some weeks after this ordeal, she safely delivered healthy and robust twins. The ordeal had left deep scars, but it had also forged an unbreakable bond between them. They honored the memory of Ike and Princess Osoma and her brother by naming the twins after them, vowing to ensure that the forgotten Delta would never again gain entrance to their territory. The village, too, learned from this trial. They strived harder to stay on the path of truth and light in all their dealings and honored God, ensuring that such a dark presence could never again take hold. Together they moved forward, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that love, courage, and unity could overcome even the darkest of curses. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed the story and the lessons embedded within it. We know that evil is prevalent in the land and in the world at large, but we should never fear such because the power of wickedness lies in darkness. If only we can continue to live our lives in light, then we can have no fear of the curses of darkness or wickedness. For as the Bible says, when the light comes, darkness cannot comprehend it. God bless you. Till next time. Bye.